Yes.
So the last time, while discussing the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita, we discussed Prakriti, for which an analogy was given of the upside-down Ashwatha tree, or the upside-down peepal tree. Now, this middle part of the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita deals with the individual soul, the Kshetrajna, the Jivatma, the individual Purusha, and it deals with rebirth. In the Bhagavad Gita, text 7 of 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Mamai vanso jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatanah mana shasta indriyani prakriti sthani karshati. So several important issues are mentioned here. One is that Krishna is declaring that you and I are but an ansh, a fragment, an infinitesimal fragment of the Supreme. And since we are infinitesimal fragments of the Supreme, and we are, additionally, he says, Jiva Bhuta Sanatanaha. Mamai vanso Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatanaha. Which means we are eternally fragments of Krishna. We are eternally fragments of the Supreme. We are not, shall I say, fragments that are destined to become the Supreme. We are fragments of the Supreme, and we are eternally destined to continue as fragments of the Supreme. Mamai vanso jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatanaha. And therefore, because we imagine that we are the doers, because we imagine that we control Prakriti, because we imagine that we are controlling our mind and our six senses, we are struggling with them. Elsewhere in the Bhagavad-Gita, Krishna clearly states, Mayadhyakshena prakriti suyate sa characharam hetunanena kaunteya jagad viparivartate. So Krishna declares in the Bhagavad Gita that he is the Adhyaksh, he is the controller, he is the one who is the administrator of Prakriti. It is under his directions that Prakriti is functioning. He also states right from the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, he says that Prakriti kriyamanani gune karmani sarvashah ahankara vimudatma kartaham iti manyate. Krishna declares that the foolish living entity imagines himself to be the doer of activities which are performed by Prakriti. He also says that Purusha Prakriti sthohi bhungte Prakriti jan gunan karanam guna sangasya sad asad yoni janmasu. Krishna says that because of our association with Prakriti, we are moving from one womb to another and thereby coming in contact with the different aspects of Prakriti. Sometimes we come across Prakriti that is enjoyable, and sometimes we come across Prakriti or we acquire Prakriti as our envelope, which is unfavorable or that which causes us discomfort. Karya karanam kartritve hetur prakriti uchyate. Purusha sukha dukhanam bhoktritva hetu ruchyate. Krishna declares that all action is performed by Prakriti, but the foolish living entity who imagines himself to be the doer of activities, he enjoys and he suffers. It's like when you go to see a movie. When you see a movie, sometimes you get completely captured by what is going on the screen. So you become excited when the part of the movie becomes exciting. We start feeling the joy of the hero and the sorrow that he experiences. In actual fact, we are doing nothing but seated in our theater seats and we are watching on the screen the play that is occurring. Precisely this is what is happening. So Krishna says, Purusha Prakriti, he says very clearly, Karya Karanam Kartritve, that actually Prakriti is doing everything, but because we imagine we are doing it, we enjoy and we suffer. Similarly, in this verse, Krishna declares that Mana Shasta Indriyani Prakriti Sthani Karshati. We are struggling with our mind and our senses. In truth, the individual Purush, the Kshetrajna, the Jivatma, he does nothing. He can only desire. And if Krishna feels it fit, he will fulfill your desire. So therefore, you find that often things that you want to control within your own body or within your own mind or your own intelligence, it is not going the way you want it to go. So you struggle with your emotions, you struggle with your physical being. So Krishna says very clearly in the Bhagavad-Gita that Daivi yasa gunamayi mama maya duratyaya mameva ye prapadyante mayam etam tarantite. You are infinitesimal, Krishna says in this verse. Mamai vansho, you are an ansha, you are a fragment of me. And what about Prakriti? He says that Prakriti is my divine energy. Devi yasa gunamayi, my divine energy is Prakriti. And it's very difficult to overcome. Mama maya duratyaya. Very difficult to overcome. But when you surrender unto me, mamevaya prapadyante, mayam etam tarantite. So when you surrender unto Bhagavan, then you will cross beyond, you will transcend Prakriti. Having said this, Krishna now goes on to the next verse of the Bhagavad Gita, where he explains that the living entity carries his impressions of the previous life to the next body, just like breeze carries the fragrance of a flower. Rebirth is not introduced here, it is introduced way early in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Avinashi tu tad vidhi yena sarvam idam tatam. He says that which pervades the body is indestructible. He also explains in the second chapter that dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara tatha dehantara praptir dhiras tatrana muyati. He explains in the second chapter that you are changing bodies all the time, from infancy to childhood to youth to maturity to middle age to old age. Finally, at the time of death, you leave this body to take another body. So this is already explained. He also says in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita that Vasanshi jirnanya yatha vihai navani grinati naro parani tatha sharirani vihai jirnanya Anyani Samyati Navani Dehi. So Krishna says that just as you cast off your worn out clothes and you wear fresh ones, so also when you change your body, you're casting off your physical body and putting on a new physical body. So this has already been explained in the second chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita. And now, in this 15th chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita, Krishna is explaining exactly what happens when you are moving from one body to the other. It is not just the soul which is moving to another gross body. In fact, it is really the soul with luggage and baggage. So, what is it that moves from one body to the next? It's very important to understand this, and you may not find this elsewhere unless you look very hard. So, I would like you to pay close attention to what I am saying. When this individual soul leaves the body and it moves on to the next one, at that time, what really leaves the body is the subtle body. The gross body of flesh and blood is left behind. And the subtle body, which forms the part which moves from one body to the next. So what is this subtle body? First and foremost, that which holds the subtle body together and with which the Jivatma or the Kshetrajna misidentifies, which in turn becomes the cause of its rebirth, is that there is a misidentification with Prakriti, which is called ahankar. So ahankar is the false sense of self. It is the illusion of selfhood. And this illusion of selfhood or ahankar is part of the subtle body. Along with this ahankar, also buddhi moves. And along with the buddhi, the manas also moves. Mano, buddhir, ahankar. All these three form the subtle body. And these three which form the subtle body move from one gross body to the next gross body. If you go and see earlier part of the Bhagavad-Gita, Krishna explains very clearly, Bhumi apo nalo vayur kham mano buddhireva cha ahankara itya me bhinna prakriti ashtada. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego. So earth, water, fire, air, and ether, these are largely the gross elements. There are also subtle elements, but the gross elements are left behind. And manobuddhir ahankar, which is the subtle element, also part of the bhinna prakriti, moves from one body to the next. So also as the gross body, as the subtle body moves from one body to the next, it carries with it the predominant guna. So if the predominant guna at your time of death is sattva guna, you go to one destination. If it is rajoguna, you go to another destination or a body in a different destination. And if you leave the body in tamoguna, when tamoguna is predominant, you go then to a body which is in a completely different destination. This is clearly explained in the Bhagavad-Gita, where Krishna says that urdhva gacchanti sattvasto madhya tishtanti bharata. So, urdhva gacchanti, those who are in sattva gun, they go to the higher planets. Those who are in Rajagun, they move to the middle planets, like this earth where we are presently. And those who are Tamoguna, they move to the lower planets. This is the destination that results from the gunas that accompany Mano Buddhir Ahankar. Another point I would like to stress over here is that when you leave the body, you are experiencing only the subtle body. You are not experiencing the gross body. The gross body enables us to distract ourselves from the suffering of the subtle body. The subtle body contains all the impressions of the previous life. Therefore, all the good deeds you've done, all the evil that you have done, all the selfish acts that you have performed, all of them, these karmas you carry along with you. And when you leave the body, you experience the positivity and negativity that you are carrying from one body to the next. When you are living in your body now, if wonderful things happen to you because of the good deeds you have done, you cannot indulge or enjoy those wonderful things in completeness because you are always distracted by the things of the world. A mosquito will bite you, a dog may come and bark at you, somebody will pass uncharitable comments about you. So even if you've done very good deeds and you are experiencing joy because of the good deeds you've done, you also experience a diminution of that joy because of the external environment. Similarly, if you are experiencing, if you have done something evil, if you've done something selfish, if you have caused harm to individuals or the environment, what happens is you feel bad. But although your experiences are painful or sorrowful, you can distract yourself by phone a friend, by watch a movie, by distracting yourself with music and so on and so forth. But when you are moving from one gross body to the next, when this Mano Buddhir Ahankar is in transition, you experience the joy in fullest extent without anyone trying to disturb that joy. And that joy and happiness that you experience is really called Swarga. Whereas all the evil that you have done, the selfishness that you have engaged in, the negativity that you are carrying from one birth to another, you have no scope for distraction. You have no way, no senses, no external senses by which you can distract yourself. So you experience that negativity with full extent, and that we call as narak. Having experienced Swarg and Narak, you move on. And where do you move on to? As I said, it depends what kind of gunas you're carrying with you. The 16th chapter describes that when you are carrying negative emotions, when you are carrying emotions or you're carrying the gunas of Rajo and Tamo guna, where do you think you will go? Asurim yonim apanam mudho janmani janmani. Because of your tamagun and rajagun, which is predominant within you, because of the bad deeds that you have performed, because of the selfish acts that you have engaged in causing harm to others, you have asuric nature, and that asuric nature of your prakriti then tells you to move on to a womb that is a close match for the gunas that you are carrying. So you get an asuric womb, and birth after birth, you go in a downward spiral as you do that. So you should understand and you should realize that the actions that you perform determine the destination that you are going to. It also explains how you experience Swarg and Narak. Swarg and Narak are in your subtle body. Even while you're living on this earth, you are experiencing Swarg and Narak. But as I told you, because you have external senses, you are able to distract yourself. So once you move from one body to the next, or how do you move from one body to the next? You are carrying Mano Buddhir Ahankar. You are also carrying with you all the karmas of the past. So you are carrying with you your prarabdha karmas which are in execution. You are also carrying your sanchit karmas, which are the seed karmas. They also determine exactly where you are going, and it gives weightage to the prarabdha karmas of towards the destination that you are going to. Besides your karmas, you are carrying with you your unfulfilled inchoate desires. These are known as vasanas. Vasanas are the unexpressed inchoate desires that you are carrying with you birth after birth. Indeed, a lot of movement between one body to another is because the previous body is no longer useful for fulfilling your desires. And these vasanas also carry you. So you have the karma, bundle of karmas, you also have a bundle of vasanas. And you also carry with you your samskaras. What are the samskaras? Samskaras are your impressions of the life that you have lived. Of course, there are Vedic samskaras that purify you and polish you so that you move towards sattva gun. But you also have other samskaras which are not good. And these samskaras are thought, speech, and habit patterns. Your various desires and addictions towards tobacco or alcohol or various other things, they are also carried with you because they are nothing but the sanskaras that you have cultivated in the previous body. And what propels you? The propellant for moving from one body to the next, as described in the Prashna Upanishad, are none other than your pranas. So you have 5 pranas. You have prana vayu, you have samana vayu, you have apana vayu, you have vyayana vayu, and udana vayu. So the pranas act as the carrier. Just as a radio signal needs frequency to travel through the air, the data of all that you are carrying, you are not just carrying your mano buddhir ahankar, you are carrying a bunch of data which includes your karmas, includes your vasanas, includes your samskaras. And this entire data transfer that is occurring between one gross body to the next requires energy to be propelled from one body to the other in the material world. And therefore, pranavayu withdraws consciousness from the limbs. Samanavayu balances the internal energy for the exit of the vayu. The apanavayu pushes the life force out of the current physical body. Vayanavayu keeps the subtle body together during the flight. And udanavayu leads the soul towards its next destination. So the pranas, this is described in the Prashna Upanishad, they carry the body, the subtle body, from one gross body to the next. Even the passage of the subtle body from the gross body is determined by what kind of life you have led. If you are not going to another body but reuniting with God, you go through the Brahmarandra, which corresponds to the posterior fontanelle of the skull. If you are in Sattva Guna, then you traverse the higher orifices. And if you are carrying sinful karmas and sanskaras, you emerge from the lower orifices of the body. So, I have explained to you how the gross body is discarded and the subtle body moves from one gross body to the next. Some places it is called the Karana Sharir, in other places it is called the Linga Sharir. In various other texts which include the Garud Puran, it points out that there is a subtle body which moves from one gross body to the next, which in transition is Angushta Matra, which is like the size of a thumb, which again becomes minuscule and minute and infinitesimal when it enters the womb. So, this is how the body, the subtle body, moves from one gross body to the next. And when it moves to the next body, it gathers another gross, it moves into another gross body. And according to the potentiality of the karmas that you are carrying, there are both gross senses and there are subtle senses. Subtle senses are not your eye, nose, tongue, etc. The subtle senses are the capacity to interact with the gross senses and produce sensations. So, for example, if in this life you have trained your ear to listen to music, if you have trained your tongue and your vocal cords to sing and trained it extensively, all this is stored in your subtle senses. And when your subtle body moves from one gross body to the next, it carries the improvement that you have brought, or the training that you have brought, or the samskaras you have created in your subtle senses to the next gross body. And once it is situated in the next gross body, it gathers gross senses around these subtle senses. Shrotram chakshu sparshanam cha rasanam granam eva cha adhishtaya manaschaivam chayam vishayan upasevate. And thus, the living entity taking another gross body obtains a certain type of ear, tongue, nose, sense of touch, which are grouped around the mind. And thus he enjoys a particular set of sense objects. Utkramantam sthitam vapi bhunjanam va gunanvitan vimudo nanu pasyanti jnana chakshusha. So, how the living entity leaves one gross body and it moves on to the next gross body cannot be understood by those who are foolish, those who are untrained, those whose eyes are not trained with knowledge. But those whose eyes are trained in knowledge, such people can see that death is not death, but death is merely a change of bodies. So do not grieve when you see people pass away. Do not grieve when a near and dear one leaves their body. Because if your eyes are trained in knowledge by studying these verses, you will understand that in truth, no one dies. Not just that the soul does not die, but even the mind, intelligence, and the ego even their unfulfilled desires, even the karmas that they have created, even the thoughts, speech, and habit patterns, the entire luggage and baggage, the entire data of that person is being transferred from one body to the next. So if your eyes are pashyanti jnana chakshusha, this can be seen by those whose eyes are trained in knowledge. But vimodo nano pashyanti, those who are foolish, those who are ignorant, those who are untrained, they cannot see what happens at the time of death. And in chapter 15, text 11, Krishna declares, Yatanto yoginaschainam pashyantya atmanya avastitam yatanto api akritatmano nainam pashyanti acetasaha. The endeavoring transcendentalist who is situated in self-realization, he understands what is happening to people when they pass away, when they leave their body. But those who are not in self-realization, they cannot see what is taking place, although they may try to. Even though your eyes are trained in knowledge, although you are established as the Kshetrajna, although you understand that Prakriti is doing everything and you are doing nothing, you attend a funeral where people are crying and weeping. And if you try to tell them that don't worry, he is not dead, he just moved on, they will not understand or see it. They may even get angry with you. So this brings about a conclusion to the middle third or the middle part, middle theme of the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita. And I will conclude here. If there are any questions, please feel free to ask me.
Thank you, Shantnuji, for today's session.
I can't hear you. Can you speak loudly?
Thank you, Shantnuji. Can you hear me now?
I think you may need to adjust your volume.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Shantnuji, for today's wonderful session. My first question is, how does this concept relate to major life transitions like divorce, career challenges, and
Pardon?
how does this concept of life and death in the Bhagavad Gita relate to major life transitions like divorce, career changes, illness?
Like what?
Like divorce, career change, illness that people go through?
See, what is happening is your body is changing all the time, both your gross body and your subtle body. As a matter of fact, if you do radioisotope labeling, you will find that every single molecule in your body changes in the period of 1 year. If you look at it from a structural perspective, every 7 years you change your body completely. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains that dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yavanam jara tatha dehantara praptir dhiras tatrana moyati. So from childhood to adulthood to adolescence to adulthood to maturity to middle age to old age, you're changing your body all the time. So is it surprising that there are other changes in your life? Therefore, we must understand that changes are inevitable within this world. In fact, in this world, everything changes except the law of change. So changes are inevitable. But that is the nature of Prakriti, which is constantly changing itself. But we need to have commitment. Commitment to two things: the Swadharma of our Prakriti and the Swadharma of the individual soul. The Swadharma of Prakriti is to selflessly engage in performing our duty in a spirit of sacrifice to the all-pervading Lord. And the other swadharma we have is the swadharma of the soul, which is to be constantly engaged in remembering God and forgetting our ego. So yatah pravrittir bhutanam yena sarvam idam tatam swakarmana abhyarchaya siddhim vindati manava. So have commitment towards the duties we have in our life. Have commitment to keeping your mind trained to see the divine in everything. If you act in this manner, you will constantly bring about an attenuation, a diminution, and even a transcendence of the ego or the self. And as you undergo a diminution or a transcendence of the ego, you will come to realize true knowledge. And what is that true knowledge? Yaj gnatva na punarmoham evam yasyasi pandava sarvabhutani asheshani drakshasya atmano atomai. You will realize that all things, they lie within God, they are in Him and they are His. So throughout the changes of life, by keeping your attention on God and sticking to doing your duty in a spirit of sacrifice, you will get peace, completely independent of the events in your life.
Thank you so much for this answer, Shantanuji, and thank you so much for today's enlightening session. And to all our viewers, if you liked it too, then don't forget to share this video with your loved ones. Also, stay tuned as we meet again on next Thursday at 8 a.m. for yet another session on the Bhagavad Gita. Hare Krishna.
So, Hari Om, Jai Shri Krishna, Hare Krishna.